Now, our purpose here at Unity of Tucson is to provide a safe, loving, and inclusive space where all people can explore the principles of the New Thought spiritual philosophy, which is the spiritual philosophy that we teach here. I have found that through the adoption of the principles of that philosophy that my life has gotten better. And so through this philosophy, perhaps you can master spiritual understanding, find personal purpose, develop a spiritual path. And the thing about all of that is you may not believe everything you hear today. And that's actually an okay thing. I think it's a good thing that we question what we hear, that we stay in a constant state of questioning our beliefs. And if you hear something that butts up against your belief system here today, be willing to just take a look at it and say, free of judgment, and say, I see this that has been expressed here as a tenet of the teaching. Is this something that butts up against my belief system, which is over here? If they're in alignment, great. And if they're not in alignment, great. Because you get to decide how you will take that and put it into practice in your life. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to tell you what to think. That is entirely your responsibility. All I'm here to do is offer the tenets of the philosophy. I offer the teaching for you to determine what you would like to do. Now, we do have a vision and a mission here at Unity of Tucson, and I would love for us as a community, as we do every week, to say together first these words in our vision statement. Let's say this together. We envision a world awakened to its magnificence. And as I say each week, the vision is a manner in which we may choose to see the world. The mission are steps that we can put into practice that allow that vision to come into expression. So let's share these words of our mission statement. Love only, forgive everything, remember who you are. Let's take a breath into that idea for just a moment. Love only, forgive everything, remember who you are. Love only, forgive everything, remember who you are. What I hold to be true in my heart is that each and every one of us is an expression of an infinite divine power, that we are expressing the infinite love of God at all times, no matter what. And for that, I am in eternal gratitude. So the theme of this month is adventure. Adventure. And I gave a lot of thought to the themes that I wanted to incorporate for the months of this year, and they were all chosen several months ago. And I shared them with the prayer chaplains. I shared them with the ministers. And one of the things that I was invited to do was to ensure that we know how to actually put these things into practice in our life. So a little of what's going to happen today is how can we put adventure into practice in our life? And so the talk today is called Arise and Thrive. It's 2025. I had considered calling it Come Alive. It's 2025. Works, right? But then I thought to myself, there's not a call for us to come alive. We have come alive in this community. We are awake in this community. And so really what resonated with my soul is that we thrive in 2025, right? There's a great quote, one of the quotes that I absolutely adore of Maya Angelou when she said this: "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." Are you willing to thrive this year, to thrive in this moment with passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style? Yes. I am. I mean, what would it feel like to live with more purpose, more boldness, more creativity in our lives? That's what the adventure is all about for me. We are here as creative spiritual expressions of the one power. The one power, the one presence, the one love, the one source energy, whatever we choose to call it. Many of us choose to call it God. That was funny. I don't usually put God out there like that. How about this? We choose to call it God. The innate sensibility within each and every one of us that is calling to be something more than we have ever been before. And you know why I know that is possible for each and every one of us? I know that is possible for each and every one of us because the nature of the divine is infinite. So we have an infinite nature into which we can express more and more and more, and it is unceasing. And that's what it is for me to be creative, because I am co-creating with Spirit all the time. All the time, whether I'm aware of it or not, I am a co-creator with the infinite power and presence of God. Now, creativity sometimes aligns with artistry, right? I think sometimes we get confused. We think, oh, I'm not a creative person because I'm not artistic. But they couldn't be more separate. Just because you exist, you are creative because you created your life. You created your life. Now, some of you may be out there going, oh, I did? You mean all that stuff that I've been experiencing was my creation? Yes. The class has come off. Here's the thing about that. If we get so muddled up in what we have created, we stop ourselves from creating anew. And so it doesn't matter what has been created in your past. It does not matter. Let it go and come alive and thrive with some new idea, something new in your life. If you are existing, you are creating. That's the truth. Each breath is an opportunity for creation. Each breath that is infused with thought, with belief, and feeling. And every breath is infused with thought, with belief, and with feeling. And those are the things that we look to create the construct of our lives. Because at the root of this entire spiritual philosophy is our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings. The way that they work together creates the construct of life, right? That is a fundamental principle in New Thought. It is the third principle that we state in the 5 basic principles of unity. And the way that we do that, as I mentioned before, is through the practice of prayer. We create through the practice of prayer. Now, here's the thing about prayer. Yes, we can formalize prayer as we do. We have formal expressions and experiences of prayer up here. But every word you say, spoken out loud, every word you think, every belief you have, and the feelings around that, it is all prayer. All of it. 100% of it. And so the call for each and every one of us is to open up to an awareness of what it is we are thinking and believing and feeling. That's why I say, I'm not here to tell you what to think or what to believe. That's entirely your responsibility. And you can root that responsibility in the kind of life you would like to express and experience. So, every breath is an opportunity to create something new. All right, because it is a running joke now, I'm going to mention the Camino. It's like, oh, here he goes again, talking about the Camino. So for those of you who are not aware, if you're new to our community, I walked the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage a year and a half ago. It is a 500-mile walking pilgrimage in Spain. I walked for 34 days. Now, prior to getting on a plane and going to Spain to do this thing that I've thought about for a decade and a half, I'd been considering it for about 15 years, there were a lot of things that I could have infused into that experience that I could have been dragging with me from the past. I could have infused a lot of trepidation in the preparation for what was to unfold. But I have a choice. I had a choice. Either infuse it with trepidation or infuse it with excitement for the unknown. To not think I had to have all of the answers about what to expect when I was on the way. And let me tell you, that was a great way to start that journey, to start that walk. and to continue that walk every single day. As many of you know, when I came back, I said one of the primary lessons that I learned is actually stated in that Jason Mraz song that I sang called "Be Where Your Feet Are." Be present. Do not be rooted in the anticipation or anxiety about the future, and let go of all those past ideas that have no bearing on who you are, except to the degree that you allow them. Except to the degree that you allow them. Now, one thing was certain in the experience of the Camino. I chose to step into the unknown knowing that I would thrive no matter what. No matter what. And this was reflected back to me by the first hospitalario that I experienced on my first night staying in an albergue. The man who was our host said, "Don't over-plan. Don't think you need to know where you're going to sleep at night." That's terrifying or exciting, depending on how you look at it. And so I endeavored to ensure that I would experience the experience in a thriving way. And I have to look and say, what were the perceptions of limitations that I carried with me? And I had to say, as I experience or have an awareness of those limitations, am I willing to set them down, to let them go, to let them be in the past behind me where they have no bearing on who I am now? To thrive is to embrace the unknown. That's how I really define the notion of thriving. It is to embrace the unknown, because here's the thing. There is truly nothing known about how our future will unfold. We all think we know. We don't know. We do not know. I do not know what is going to happen 50 seconds from now. I think I know. I'm probably going to be still in the middle of my talk. That's a possibility. In an hour, I may still be in the middle of my talk. That's a possibility. There is nothing truly known about what is to unfold. There's none of it. Now, what we have the capacity to do through the spiritual practice of prayer is we can set the tone, we can set the expectation, we can set the intention for what may unfold. But here's what I encourage us all to do. In the setting of that tone, in the setting of that expectation, in the setting of that intention, be willing to allow it to unfold in its natural way. To not think I have to get a grip on how it's all going to unfold and be so manipulative about how my circumstances are going to be. Let it go. Let it go. So we can set the tone, we can decide on the tone for what is to come and know that it is for our benefit. We can know that what is coming is for our benefit or our detriment, and so it is. How are you choosing to set the tone today? How are you choosing? You are 100% at choice around how your day unfolds. I know I say this sometimes a lot. Figure that oxymoron out. You ever wake up on the wrong side of the bed? I do sometimes. I do wake up on the wrong side of the bed. But in that moment, what I have learned and I've allowed myself to take in as a practice is to recognize the feeling tone that I am experiencing in that moment and determine, is this how I want to spend my day? And if it's not, then I get to change it. I get to make a new decision. We are empowered in the decisions we make to address the feelings that we are expressing and feeling and allow those things to come into expression or not. We have 100% at choice in how our life unfolds, and it can be beneficial or detrimental. You decide. You decide. The life so many of us seek requires, here's the thing, the life so many of us seek requires pressing against the edges of the unknown. It's called surpassing your comfort zone, right? Surpassing your comfort zone, pressing up against that comfort zone. And here's the thing, you don't need to go way outside your comfort zone. Follow me, Gavin. You don't need to go way outside your comfort zone. Gavin's our camera operator. He loves when I move a lot, right, Gavin? And I move a lot. You don't need to go way outside your comfort zone, but maybe today it's just this. That can be enough to set the trajectory of your life experience on a completely different, more positive path if you decide. This is a present moment practice. It is always a present moment practice, and each moment is a moment of infinite possibility. Infinite. You know what infinite means? Without edges. It means infinite. There's no other way to describe it. The minute we put edges on something, like a comfort zone, we have now limited the experience. See? But the moment by moment, present moment living, where we press against those perceptions of edges, we are engaging in infinite possibility for our lives. Sometimes limitations are set aligning our present with our past, right? That's how we were very good at aligning limitation with looking at past paradigms. Looking and saying, oh, well, that happened then, so it must be inevitable now. No. Why? Why do we think that is the case? We live in a culture where we're taught that. So I invite you to let go of that teaching. I invite you to do that. When we consider what may be only from the point of view of the past, we continue to recreate that past idea in the present moment. The thrill of adventure is that it is completely unknown. There's a story that has Taoist roots, but the source that I found has attributed this telling of it to Alan Watts. And it is the story of the Chinese farmer. And he wrote or said this. He said, once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate. They said, we are so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate. And the farmer said, maybe. The next day, the horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everybody came back and said, oh, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses. The farmer again said, maybe. The following day, his son tried to break one of the horses, and while riding it, he was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors then said, oh dear, that's too bad. And the farmer responded, maybe. The next day, the conscription officers came around to conscript people into the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. Again, all the neighbors came around and said, isn't that great? Again, he said, maybe. The whole process of nature is an integrated process of immense complexity, and it's really impossible to tell whether anything that happens in it is for good or bad, because you never know what will be the consequence of the misfortune, or you never know what will be the consequences of good fortune. We can cast the vision of what we may want to experience, but the encouragement is to not let it be rooted in the past. What if we lived a life of maybe? As things unfolded, we can look at it as either good or bad. We can look at it as either positive or negative. We can look at it as either beneficial or not. And what if we just went, I see that that is the way this is unfolded. How it will continue to unfold is a maybe. It's a maybe. I hold in my own heart, and you get to decide what you do with this. I hold in my own heart that there is a spiritual imperative. And that imperative is that this universe is the expression of infinite source. And that expression is dynamic. It is not static. It is always in motion. And so this must too be our nature. Our nature is dynamic. It is not static. You get to decide how you will express your dynamism. What are you doing with that today? Are you thriving? Are you thriving? We can do a really good job at being resistant to our nature. Whoa, I've done a lot of that in my life. Being really resistant to that dynamic nature that is inherent in me. I have resisted it on many, many, many occasions. But the nature of spiritual adventure is to be in harmony with the flow. I gave a message several weeks ago where I used the metaphor of being in the flow by talking about being in the river, right? And we can be working against the flow, or we can be allowing ourselves to go with the flow. But one thing I didn't really talk about is sometimes the nature of being still in the flow is there is resistance because the flow is trying to invite you on its way. So sometimes we try to be still, but it takes a lot of effort to just be still. Sometimes the stillness comes with allowing ourselves to be in it. So the nature of spiritual adventure is to be in harmony with the flow of life and to know that as we think, as we believe, as we feel, we are setting the tone for what that life may end up looking like. And to allow ourselves to also be graceful as life unfolds. Because life is going to unfold whether you want it to or not. Experiences are going to happen whether you want them to or not. Circumstances are going to construct themselves whether you want them to or not. What is your capacity to be in grace with yourself around how that is experienced? Because your relationship to the circumstances and experiences of life is the thing that you have 100% control over. Your relationship to it. You know, we sell a bill of goods in New Thought sometimes. Many people come to this philosophy, as I've said before. Many people come to this philosophy, and this is sort of what drew me in, because I sat there on a Sunday morning once back, what year is this? 2025? It's now 20 years ago when I first stepped foot in a New Thought spiritual community, and I sat there and I just was like, oh, the minister, what is he saying? I've never heard anything like this before. And this is actually a spiritual philosophy that actually resonates with my soul. And what I'm hearing is, change your thinking, change your life, right? Change your thinking, change your life. And it becomes a very intellectual exercise. But what I have found is that it has to move from the intellect to the heart space, to that state of feeling. And that is how I can change my life. It is not about me trying to manipulate the circumstances of my life. I am so tired of teaching prayer, and the first prayer that we all learn is how to get a good parking space. What we call Doris Day parking, right? Because she would drive up in her little sports car, wherever she was in New York City, and like right up to the front door of wherever she needed to go. There is so much more to life that you can express and experience than just finding a good parking space. It's so true. But we are told at the beginning that this is possible through the practice, through the adoption, through the teaching. And if you are willing to put it into practice in an intellectual way, you can create the life you want to create. But it's not about the intellect. It is about spiritualizing the intellect. I think it wasn't Charles Fillmore. I can't remember who it was, but it might have been Charles Fillmore because I don't have it in my notes. But one of the great leaders in the New Thought movement said, we need to stop trying to intellectualize the spirit and work harder to spiritualize the intellect. The teacher of teachers, Emma Curtis Hopkins, invited us into this reminder. She said, the world will persist in exhibiting before you what you persist in affirming the world is. What are you persisting in affirming the world is? Is it a hospitable, glorious place of love, light, life, peace, power, beauty, and joy? Or are you persisting in another frame of mind? Because it will become whatever is persistent in your mind and in your heart. Our capacity to thrive is tied directly to how boldly and passionately we affirm and live adventure. And I choose to thrive in that. There is a musical, my favorite musical of all time, that I watch every year on my birthday. I watched it yesterday. It's not Wicked. Every year I watch a musical called Sunday in the Park with George. And that musical starts with these words. white, a blank page or canvas. The challenge, bring order to the whole. It's a call to each and every one of us to embrace that creative nature at the heart of us. What if we began to paint our lives with bolder color and bolder strokes than ever before? This is an invitation to release the familiar and step boldly into the adventure. And know at all times that the source, God, the infinite spirit, whatever you choose to call it, it always has our backs. Always, no matter what. Consider for a moment any area of life where you might be holding back. Just consider it for a moment. Perhaps there is fear at the core of that consideration. Perhaps a pattern of living is more comforting. Perhaps the possibility of ridicule by others stops you and holds you back from something you might want to experience. Remember this, that discomfort, if you're willing to push through it, is a sign of growth, never of failure. Never of failure. Thriving requires moving beyond mere survival. Thriving requires moving beyond mere survival, stepping out of the comfort zones with passion, compassion, humor, and style. The call today is to persist in affirming the adventure of life, and you will create a thriving reality. So let us arise and thrive. It's 2025. Peace and blessings. You are magnificent. The home practice this week is this. If you're new to our community, I offer a home practice, something that you can carry with you, that you can put into practice in your life every day. Each week, I give a new home practice. Today, it is this. Write or meditate daily on one thing you are grateful for about the unknown. Frame it as an opportunity for embracing divine possibility. And see if this gratitude practice shifts your perspective from any state of fear that may still be experienced to a state of faith. That's the home practice this week.